Three, two, one. We are live. David, good to have you on the podcast. I do appreciate it. We've been talking through Twitter, Discord, and stuff to get this set up, and I'm finally glad to have you on. How are you doing, man?
Thanks, Jack. Pleasure to be here. An honor, really, to be on the podcast. I know you've had some great guests here before me, and hope I can live up to the lofty standards
Oh,
that they've set.
definitely, man. Definitely, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about yourself, I guess, for those of you who might not know or just a refresher.
Certainly. I'm David Schildhouse. I've been a part of the sim racing community for a very long time. Not to date myself too much, but I really got into online sim racing back in 2003 in the NASCAR Racing 2003 game, and I've stuck with it since then. I joined iRacing back in 2009, I believe, so a little over 10
Jeez.
years on the service there. And yeah, one of the early adopters, but I never really took it too seriously. I didn't do it a whole bunch because I stayed with NASCAR 2003 as my primary sim for a very, very long time. And but I'd always dabbled in it a little bit here and there. And really, this year, towards the end of last year, I started getting really serious about it again. But I love sim racing. I love the sim racing community. Obviously, today was a big day for the sim racing
Yeah,
community. The past few weeks
definitely.
have been, but it's been a great ride up to this point, and it seems to only be getting better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you were kind of talking about that with the sim racing community, especially just the last few weeks. I mean, I guess we'll dive right into that because obviously I think everyone knows by now with the coronavirus and all that, unfortunately spreading around, uh, all real life sports, I mean, everything, like the whole world basically is shut down right now. And I feel like now is that like it's like a golden age for sim racing right now. It's insane the amount of um like I guess publicity and just people that are getting drawn into sim racing is just so cool as kind of a substitute. And you had the honors to help cast, I saw last week, the Podium Esports truck series at Atlanta. I think it
Yeah.
was, yeah. So, how was that? That must have been pretty cool.
Yeah, I was saying to my family earlier this week, and I think I said it during a stream recently as well. It feels really strange to say that a pandemic like this with coronavirus has had uh, a benefit to it. It's really
Yeah.
weird to think and say that, but in a sense, it has. I guess if you want to put a silver lining to a very dark cloud, the effect that it's had on not just sim racing, but a lot of other things. There's plenty of benefits, if you want to call them that. But for our genre specifically, without real life racing, without going to the racetrack and having a platform like iRacing that can come pretty close to duplicating a lot of what we see and what we're used to seeing and get the names that we're used to seeing to come in and do it, I think that's what's given it a lot of credibility. Of course, it started last Sunday with the Replacements 100, a quickly organized event with TJ Majors and Kevin Hamlin getting together and wanting to put something together involving iRacing, and Podium Esports was fortunate enough to be able to carry that. It was James Pike, Jacob Seelman, and of course me as well on the call. Cisco Scarmoza doing a great job as always with the production, and the whole Podium Esports team working behind the scenes to make this thing happen with those guys. And we had a great event. It was a great show. Um, it was unbelievable to think about in the moment. Like I normally, as you see now, I normally sit down when I'm broadcasting something if I'm doing that. But for that event, I was standing up the whole time. I couldn't sit
I
down.
just couldn't
I was
stay
too
seated.
excited.
That's so cool.
I couldn't. I
Yeah, it's
couldn't. It was just
crazy.
unbelievable.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like, cause yeah, I was watching it last week as well at Atlanta, and just like all the names that were in there, it just was so cool that they were able to get that everyone is able to just come together for a race like that. And then I know, gosh, when was it? A few days ago, right? There was even Haley Deegan was on the broadcast, or I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah,
was.
she was up in the booth with Podium Esports. with the for the Ryan Vargas race, the E Truck Night in America race that they were doing there. It was James and Jacob, along with Davey Segal and Haley Deegan up in the booth. Ryan Vargas was in the booth a little bit as well. So another star-studded event. A lot of the top iRacing guys, some real life guys as well. But of course, a big draw in Haley Deegan being in the booth
Definitely.
and getting her involved in sim racing. It got great viewership. I think they had 4 or 5 thousand people watching, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think yeah, speaking of viewership, when the oh, which one? I think it was the one that you did. That got up to like, I think, how many viewers did it peak at? Do you know? It was
It
insane. It was
broke
like
the record. Yeah,
it's like
for
20K or something.
most concurrent viewers for digital distribution of iRacing, about 24,000 concurrent viewers. In total views, I think for the show, it was about 128,000. So
What?
you think about the viewership that that brought in was absolutely unprecedented. And I was trying really hard not to look at that viewer count when I was watching the stream and trying to keep up with chat a little bit. I was trying not to look at that number, but it was really hard not to. That's not definitely the biggest audience I've ever performed in front of in that sense was
Yeah.
but it really spoke to how much of a need there really is for people to take in this kind of content. And I think that's why it's so important to be able to put on events like we did with the Replacements 100, like Ryan Vargas did with his deal, like Speed 51's been doing with some of their races, and like we saw today on FS1.
Yeah, no, I think it was just it was insane. I know, like, it's crazy to me to think because I Podium Esports, I've known a Podium Esport. Well, I've only been into iRacing since like very end of 2018. So like I think November, December of 2018. And I remember joining up, or I saw Patriot Breyer, Breyer Laprade, the streamer and stuff. I became good friends with him early on when I started playing iRacing, and he was telling me about, oh, there's this, Daytona 500, that you can win money or whatever doing this. This was, of course, for the 2019 iRacing Podium Esports Daytona 500.
Right.
And I didn't do it, but I did sign up for, I think it was like the silver truck division or something like that. I don't know if there is one even anymore, but and I mean, from the get go, Podium Esports hands down had the best production value of any league I've seen on iRacing, and like it was so cool at the time. And I viewed Podium I like Podium now, I feel like has grown so much since, like, just within the last, well, I guess even just the last week really. But I mean, it's just incredible how much just Podium as like a brand and a league has grown over, the last year. And do you know how long Podium has been around for?
Last year was their first year of operation, so they started forming that whole concept together and getting the company together because it's a legally registered
Yeah.
company. It's an LLC. They started forming that, I think, in the middle of 2018, and got it all finished up towards the fall of 2018, and we're putting the finishing touches on it to be ready to launch at the beginning of 2019. So everything that we experienced last year was the first year of operation for Podium Esports, and they brought me in. DJ Lion reached out to me, and they wanted me to be a part of it, and I was obviously very flattered. I didn't really know James Pike too well. I knew Cisco a little bit, but not a whole bunch from working at LSR TV. But I knew these names. I knew these people. I was surprised they knew who I was. 'Cause I was relatively unknown, but I was doing a little work with LSR TV, and I guess that's how they came to know me. But what Podium did last year with all the league racing that they did, the special events that they did, the Daytona 500, the Southern 500, the Elite Series, the Truck Series, the Cars Esport Tour, the Street Stock Series as well, along with the Porsche Club of America series that they've been running. They did a lot last year. When I
They
think of
did a
how many races,
ton.
I mean, I was doing 3, 4 times a week. Probably over 100 shows last year that I ended up doing with them. And it was great. It was wonderful. And then 2020 rolled around and they had to change the way that they operated a little bit to not do league racing, but focus more on special events. And I think that given what's happened now, the fact they weren't tied down or fully committed to a lot of leagues
That
that
paid
they were running
off.
themselves really helped them out because they wouldn't have been able to do, or they'd have to shift around some stuff to take on the work that they've done recently. So it's been an honor and a pleasure to be a part of the Podium Esports team. Gary and uh, James and Cisco, and Gary Sexton, I should say, and John Theodore. Um, that ownership group have been great. And people like Kyle Barnes and DJ Lyon, who've been involved with it as well, have always been very gracious and very good to me and making me feel welcome there as an independent, contributor, not an owner, but an independent contributor, but always right up there. And we brought in Jacob Seelman, and I call him Alex Hayden Jr. because he sounds like Alex Hayden from MRN, but he's fantastic. Another guy with an LSR TV lineage, along with James and Cisco, and I think everybody there has that lineage of experience, and that's why they're so good. That's why they're able to put on the production level
Yeah,
that they can, especially Cisco. I mean, he is an absolute wizard when it comes to production value. He does such a great job. I get messages from people all the time like, "How many hands does this dude have?" Like all the buttons that he's pressing to bring
honestly.
this high quality production. It's really a testament to how much technology allows us to do, but how talented certain individuals are to really bring an incredible show.
Yeah, no, I think it's just incredible. Like it's crazy. How many people do you know, I guess in total work at making Podium Esports what it is? Like I mean, are we talking about like, like a group of 10, 15 guys, or is this something that's, more than that? Or cuz I mean, I feel like from if you were just looking from a, I don't know, like a viewer's perspective, I mean, it looks just as good in my opinion as like, like the Fox Sports, literal TV coverage. So I wonder, how that all
It's
works.
not as big as you may think. So there's the four owners that I listed,
Uh huh.
who are the registered owners of the company: James, Cisco, John,
Yep.
and Gary. Um, and then they have a bunch of individuals working behind the scenes like me that come in and do broadcast work. So like Jacob, like me, like Gary Weaver, Justin Prince, and others that we've brought on, like for the Daytona 500. We had Ian Plash, Keenan Kusin, Lizzie Dubowski. Um, I feel like I'm probably leaving others out. Ryan Bauer has been brought on recently to help with production. A lot of people have come in, but they're handpicked individuals. They're people
Yeah.
that Podium believes in and wants to have on air. Um, and that's really the cool thing about it is it's not just anybody off the street that they're gonna bring on and put on a show. They
Mm,
they are selective, but yeah, it's a great group of people supporting the work that's being done. Um, a little bit of training to make sure that we have proper coverage depending on what's coming up, and having more than one producer because Cisco's just one person.
yeah.
And Ryan Bauer's done a nice job coming in. He's been doing the Cars Esport Tour stuff. I think he's been doing the Porsche Club of America races as well, and has been doing a great job from what I hear. So it's not that big of an operation, and for what they're able to accomplish, I think that what makes it even more impressive.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and what amazes me, because I mean, I think it's crazy because I sometimes commentate on races and whatnot, and um, I don't know how you and like Pike and stuff and like all of them can do that, like commentate, and not only that, but the talent of being able to like bounce off of each other, if you know what I mean, like knowing when to pick up, or knowing like, oh, they're not done talking, they're just taking a quick pause and not interrupting. And like, I don't know, how do you even, like, how does that even happen? I don't even get it, man. It's crazy.
it's it's just experience and building that chemistry with people. I think you see that in the real world side of things too. When you look at how the booths in Fox and NBC have changed over the years, but you think back to booths that you really liked because they had really good chemistry, or if you listen to MRN and the coverage they provide. But I'll say when I first joined with Podium last year and was sharing the booth with Pike, I didn't know him and I hadn't worked with him before, and it took a little time for us to develop our repertoire of how we handle a broadcast, but you learn those things over time. And we talk about it beforehand. Like for the replacements 100 last week, we had between the three of us had decided we're going to do the MRN style radio call where we're all sort of responsible for one section of the track instead of doing the 1 2 1 3 1 2 trading off between
Mm.
voices, because we had done that for about the last 10 laps or so of this year's Podium Esports Daytona 500, and it went really, really well. But we had never done it on a track that wasn't a super speedway where things are
Mm.
happening a lot faster.
Yeah.
Um, so it takes some practice, and I think we got it figured out pretty quickly. But that was a great way to do it, and I highly recommend other companies look into doing it that way if they can. It just seems to flow a little bit better. But again, when you have a section of the track you're responsible for, everyone has that responsibility to, you know, you got to be thinking constantly of what you're going to say, both ahead of time and while it's happening. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people are very picky about who they like and who they don't like because some people are better at it than others. Obviously, I've seen a lot of feedback on Twitter, which has been hilarious to me. A lot of feedback on Twitter about Podium Esports coverage, about iRacing's in-house coverage with Evan, Tim, and Randy, and any other voices you might hear associated with anything that's been happening recently. Most of the people seem to be very complimentary. Of course, there's always those out there who aren't, and that's fine. But they also don't like the people that are on TV either. So I don't think they're going to like
They're
anybody.
just haters, man.
So
To everybody,
yeah,
yeah.
it's okay. I get a kick out of it. It's fun to see. It's pushing sim racing forward, which I think is the most important thing. But all in all, when it comes to sim racing broadcasting, and I imagine it translates over to real life broadcasting as well, it's just about experience and repetition with that person you're in the booth with to really learn how to play off of one another.
Yeah, definitely. That's cool. So like when you were saying you each have different sections of the track, you're talking like literally like in like an oval sense. It's like, oh yeah, turn 1 and 2, is you. Turn 3 and 4 is them, and then
Right.
just really okay. I never thought of it like that. I guess that makes it a
Yeah.
little bit more like easy to kind of know how to bounce off of each other because it that makes a lot of sense actually. I didn't even know. Is that something that they use in real life too? Like that sort of
Not for TV,
strategy, I
but
guess.
for radio. Yeah, for radio on the MRN side, they've got usually Dave Moody in turns 1 and 2. They'll have Mike Bagley over in 3 and 4, and have a couple of guys sort of watching the front stretch as well. And so it's really just dictated off of which battle on track you're following and where they are on there. So in our instance, for the replacements 100, James Pike was responsible for coming out of turn 4 and getting down into turn 1. So he had sort of that whole front stretch quad oval area. And then I would pick up going into turn 1, and about halfway down the back straightaway is where I would drop off, and Jacob Seelman would pick up from that point till back around to coming out of 4. And so you really have to be aware of what's going on the track to make sure you're leaving ample room for that next guy to jump in when the action's in his area. But if something breaks out in front of you, you sort of jump in, and it seemed like most of the crashes were down in my area, so it gave me
It gave you a
a
lot of
lot of
time to
jumping
talk
in.
and stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, that's how we did it. Traditionally, from what I've seen in sim racing broadcasting and what I've done most of the time, is you'll have your lead announcer, you'll have your secondary, and maybe a third guy as well, depending on how many people you have. But you just sort of alternate. So if you have 2 people, you just go back and forth like ping pong. If you have 3 people, you just sort of go down the row and back.
Back.
And it doesn't really matter where on track everything is. So there's more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to doing that. But for the event that we had and the audience that we had, it just sort of logistically made sense to do it the way that we did with specific areas of the track for everybody to cover. And it
Mm.
sort of, I think, keeps a cleaner presentation overall. You don't have people jumping over each other
Yeah, or
or those weird
interrupting.
lulls. Yeah, it just sort of eliminates a lot of that. And I think it worked out really well.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand. I think you know talking about that sort of stuff, a big issue as well I feel that can make things difficult is when there's kind of like quiet periods within the race, like not much is going on, it might be single file all the way, or stuff like that, still being able to find stuff to talk about, I guess. That's
Yeah,
something that I think could be, I assume, is sometimes challenging to keep stuff to talk about.
it can be. Yeah, when they get into a green flag run, it can be a little bit tough to fill. I think it's harder to fill when there's cautions,
Mhm.
more so than when there's green flag single file racing, because you can still. I like to take the opportunity if it's green flag single file to talk about drivers. Maybe some that we don't talk about a whole bunch or we don't see a whole bunch, but give them some TV time.
Mhm.
Talk about them a little bit, and because I know a lot of people that race in leagues that are broadcast like to go back and watch, and they want to see, did I make the broadcast? Did I do something to make the broadcast for a good reason, not for a bad reason like crashing?
Yeah.
And so I think it's nice to be able to highlight different drivers if you have the opportunity, if there's nothing really engaging going on the track itself, to highlight other drivers like that. But under yellow, it can be a bit of a stretch. But you sort of roll with it, and sometimes, yeah, you recycle the same old tropes, and sort of go through the same circus, if you will, the same routine of how to get through those periods. But everyone wants to see green flag racing, and if you get it, you feel good about it. If you don't, you fall back on your notes, and you can fall back on other things that you can to fill the time.
Yeah, no, definitely. Speaking, I guess, of green flag racing, today's race with the Pro Invitational. I guess to talk a little bit about that. That was a caution fest to say the least. Do you know how many cautions there were that
I
race?
believe it was 10.
10 and 100. So like a caution every 10 laps, pretty much is what that was. Gee
Yeah,
whiz.
it was a tough start. It wasn't the best start. It wasn't the cleanest race, I think. And to put it comparatively to what we did a week ago with the replacements 100, that the first half of that race was a little rough too, and then it cleaned up in the second half. But for today's event, I think the big difference is a lot of the guys in the field didn't have a lot of experience on iRacing, whereas in the replacements 100, most of the field had experience in iRacing to some
Yeah, to
degree.
some degree.
So the relative inexperience of the field today, I think, led to a lot of what we saw. We saw Jimmy Johnson have a little bit of a
That
moment
was fun.
that was
Sitting in
regrettable.
the middle of the racetrack, just ping ponging off of everybody, going through four, I think it was.
There were some tough moments, a lot of plows, ARCA braking, whatever you want to call it. But again, I think a lot of that's due to the relative inexperience of a lot of the guys participating. And I think if they bring this back and do more of it, depending on the track and all of that, I think we'll see it clean up as guys get more comfortable with it.
Yeah,
If it was the guys who had had a lot of experience in iRacing only, I think it would have been a much different show. But,
definitely.
again, I think a lot of these guys were just having fun, trying
Mhm.
something different. But there was a very distinct like line between guys who were just out there casually having fun and guys who were really serious about competing. Guys like Garrett Smithley. I was watching his Twitch stream alongside the actual broadcast, and he was very competitive. He knew he had a good chance to win that race. He was getting irritated about all the cautions. William Byron was up there very serious. Timmy Hill, Dale Earnhardt Jr. These guys were real serious about the racing. Obviously, Denny Hamlin,
Yeah,
the winner. So there was definitely a handful of guys in this field who took it very serious and wanted to compete at a high level because they're competitors,
yeah.
even if they're not on the
It's
real
in their
racetrack. So
nature, no matter
yeah,
what.
exactly. And I enjoyed that aspect of it quite a bit.
Yeah, I thought it was really really cool, and I think just the cherry on top was having Jeff Gordon and who's the other announcer? I don't know his
Mike
name.
Joy.
Mike Joy, yeah, both of them, having the real announcers, and I thought it was great. I thought they did a great job. I thought it was fantastic. It just was super cool, especially like the beginning. I mean, they went all out, man. They had the prayer, the national anthem. They had Zach Novak, the gentlemen, start
All
your
right.
engines. Like, I mean, all that sort of stuff was, I felt like, just so cool. And it wasn't just, it just they really went all out. And I think, it's meant for not just of course like sim racers, but everybody who can't, since NASCAR's not happening, to be able to get their kind of scratch their itch of
Yep.
NASCAR in a virtual sense. But I think overall it went fantastic. I think iRacing, hit a home run with the production and all that sort of stuff. And I'm really, really thankful that there wasn't any issues from like the iRacing side regarding,
Right.
like blinking cars, or we've seen that in a lot of broadcasts. I don't know if you've seen, but like the first lap, like cars are blinking like crazy sometimes and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah,
it
it
seemed really good.
everything held together for the most part, I would say. We didn't see anything. My big fear was that we were going to see things that really made it look like a video game.
Yeah.
And we saw very, very little of that. There were some things, they had an onboard with Clint Boyer when he piled into a wreck and he actually went through a
Oh,
car instead
yeah.
of making contact with it. And, those sort of moments and the blinking, some of the things that really suck the realism out of the experience. There wasn't too much of that, thankfully. Uh, I think for me, that was my biggest fear, that they would have a lot of those moments and people who had never seen it before would tune in and be like,
Yeah, what's
what
this?
is
Like this
this?
child's play? Like, I mean, yeah. No, I agree, because it's like if even though there were quite a bit of cautions, it's like it was the drivers, of course, causing the cautions. It wasn't something outside of their control. It wasn't some sort of iRacing issue or whatever that would, like you said, cause people who tune in to just turn it off
Right.
instantly because they're like, what is
Right.
this, clown show or something. So I'm glad that
Yeah,
it
it was a
it,
good showing overall.
it was, yeah. I thought it was really, really good. I mean, how long did it run for? Like an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that.
Yeah, I think somewhere in that time frame. I know they were trying to fit it into a specific window of time, and I think they were right up against it. But
Hmm.
yeah, given all the cautions, I think they did a good job.
Definitely, yeah. I thought they did it really good, and I thought overall it was really cool. I hope they do something like another one again. I think it would be really cool because this weekend they would have raced at Homestead, right? This is like the Homestead
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah.
So, and then I don't know what's next week. Do you know? Is it
Next weekend would have been. Gosh, at this point, I'm forgetting the schedule now.
Yeah, me
Texas,
too.
maybe.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's Texas. Yeah.
Shows you
Yep.
how much I pay attention anymore.
I mean, the only reason I know any of the schedule really is because of iRacing, since NIS and stuff
Yeah.
follow the real one. But yeah, I think it's like Texas. It would be cool if they, especially now with Texas getting the new kind of rescan and the banking adjusted or whatever. It'd
Right.
be really cool
Yeah,
to
the
see
modern
them.
Texas.
Yeah, it'd be really cool to see the drivers do that next week, next Saturday or next Sunday. Do something like that. Were you able to see the IMSA? Any of that IMSA Super Saturday yesterday?
I didn't get to catch any of that. I caught a glimpse today of the start of the not Bahrain GP
Oh
with
yeah,
Lando.
I was watching some
He
of
had a
that.
rough start to that race.
I
Rough
saw
start
that.
to that race.
It was like lap two. I
um,
saw him just spin out or whatever. Like damage was off though. I'm pretty sure. I don't
yeah, I
know.
don't think they had damage, but yeah, I mean, he got punted going into one on the first lap,
Oh, I didn't
and
see
there was
that.
a lot of. That was much more of a. I mean, granted, it wasn't a broadcasted event, but it was much more of a game than anything, and
Much more
um,
memey and like
yeah,
yeah, but much more lighthearted and
still
just
fun.
fun. Definitely, yeah. I
Watching
really
Lando's always fun.
Oh yeah, definitely. His laugh is so contagious, I feel like. Um
It really is.
yeah, I think that right I really I wish iRacing capitalized on if they were able to somehow laser scan like the modern Formula 1 cars and have cuz right now they of course have all these drivers competing in the F1 games, but if they were able to get them on iRacing and like modern
Oh
F1
man.
cars, oh, that would just be you'd have IMSA, NASCAR, and F1 all on iRacing. At that point, like,
And
yeah,
IndyCar as well.
yeah, IndyCar, yeah, there was, yeah,
They're getting that together too for kind of like what NASCAR did.
yep. I heard about that. I think it's really cool. I think right now, I think also something that's really positive about this is I wouldn't be surprised if we see now more. Well, this is kind of more on the road side, but more like manufacturers wanting to jump in and be like, hey, we want our cars in this sim. You're showing this
Exactly.
on literal TV now. I bet you like Chevy and like Aston Martin and stuff or whatever from the IMSA side probably like kicking themselves. It's like we need our car out there on that track, and it's a win-win. They get their car, they get their marketing, and we get to drive their car. It just
Right.
I really
It
hope
makes you
that
wonder why they're not already.
yeah, that's Yeah, I don't really understand. I think some of it has to do with maybe they're scared to kind of like release their, not blueprints of the car, but just the inner workings of the car to iRacing, maybe in a fear that other teams will get a hold of it, or so. I don't know why. I'm
But
just
you
throwing
look at who's already
ideas.
done it. I mean, look at the
Yeah, they're
brands that
still
are involved in
successful.
iRacing. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not hurting them whatsoever.
No,
I
it's
mean, if
not.
Ferrari's doing it, and Ferrari's one of the most secretive brands in the world, if Ferrari has a car in iRacing, nobody should not have their
Nobody
car in
should not have
iRacing.
their. Yeah, and you look at like Porsche, like the Porsche 911 RSR, that's scan, and they're still winning like a ton of races. It's like, yeah, Ferrari and I think Ferrari and Porsche won Le Mans last year for the Pro Am class. Maybe it was both Ferrari. I don't know, but they're still doing really well, and it's like
Yeah.
I I don't see any negative to it. The only thing that iRacing would need to do, if a lot of manufacturers are trying to jump on the gun, is I think right now iRacing has a total of, like, you can only have 7 cars on the track, or 7 different models of cars on the track at once.
Right.
So, if you're gonna be adding in like Corvette and like Aston and stuff, you're already past 7, really. So they'd have to somehow figure that out. But I think they can get to that point where they can have
Right.
that.
Yeah, they'd have some work to do if their framework doesn't allow for, more than X amount of different types of cars to be on the track at the same time. But I believe that they would, given the huge spike in subscriptions that they've had, and that's been noted and documented, the huge increase in participation right now, and how many new subs they've had to the service recently, and the huge uptick in revenue that they're going to have overall. Uh, I would love to see them reinvested in expanding their architecture and making it more inviting to other people to join right now, especially because we don't know when life is going to return to normal.
Mm.
It could be, any period of time. So who knows how long iRacing is going to serve as the actual platform where thousands, hundreds of thousands of people now are going to be flocking to get their fix for racing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like iRacing really, I mean, they've done a good job so far, just capitalizing on what has happened. You mentioned at the very beginning of the podcast that, um, there are some pluses to this very sad thing that's going around the world right now. Like coronavirus, of course, is terrible, and the people affected and whatnot is awful. But on the flip side, when it comes to at least what we do, and just pretty much anyone who sim races, there's been a ton of positives. It's just been insane. It has really just been insane, and iRacing really needs to capitalize this as much as they can. Milk it while they can, because this is the time more than ever, and I would say even in the future, like no matter what happens, like this time right now is probably the most important time in iRacing's history, in the sense of bringing in people. Like they
Sure.
need to capitalize on it so much.
Well, it's been thrust into the spotlight in a way that it's never been thrust before. Honestly,
Yeah, really.
when there's no real life on track product, and you have this, product that exists that captures what you see in real life as well as it does, and has the ability to bring so many people together uh, through iRacing, through Twitch, or wherever else it's going to be streamed. I mean, this is it. There's no better way to do it, and I know iRacing's working very hard to capitalize on this situation for sure. Look at what we saw today. More coming in the coming weeks. The replacement series is going to continue on Tuesdays. It's going to run alongside Road to Pro on Tuesday nights on weeks opposite of the Coca-Cola iRacing series. So what we saw last Sunday is going to become its own series, and it's going to be on iRacing's Twitch channel. It's going to be broadcast, I believe, by their in-house team of Evan Pasoko, Tim Terry, and Randy Cheneth, and it's going to have the same production level as what you'd see Tuesday nights for the Coca-Cola iRacing series itself. So these things will continue. Whether we'll see another event like what we saw today, if it was successful, I promise you it'll be there. I was on Sirius Speedway with Dave Moody last week as a 5-minute phone conversation with him on the heels of the Replacements 100, because they were talking about it. So I called and said, "Hey, I was part of that broadcast. And I said, "Oh, sure, we'd love to talk with you, of course."
Mhm.
And Dave, I think, said himself, you know, anything that's a success is going to get repeated again, especially when it comes to NASCAR. So I think he's 100% correct in that. And if today's event on FS1 was a success in their eyes, and the advertisers got their return on investment they were looking for, FS1 got what they were looking for, and iRacing got what they were looking for, then I can all but guarantee you they're going to do it again, because why would you not?
Yeah, why would you not? If it worked, then just keep on doing it. I really hope that's the case. I don't know what the viewership was for FS. I know my dad was watching. He sent me a message saying, he's like, "Hey, look, iRacing's on TV," because he knows, of course, I'm big into iRacing and whatnot, and that's really cool. That my dad, as well as thousands and thousands of others, are really craving that NASCAR itch. And
Yeah.
right now, of course, it's not happening in real life, but they're doing their best with iRacing to make that reality. I'm really thankful that they went the iRacing route, not the NASCAR heat.
Oh
NASCAR,
God.
could you
Yeah,
imagine?
I'm with you on that one.
I,
Oh my gosh, that would
that is
be
just awful.
nothing good would come out of that. It would really turn a lot of people off. I mean, when NASCAR Heat, not to not to bag on the game or the people who've worked on it or the people who are involved with it or the racers themselves in the pro league. It's just about the visual aesthetic of what you see when you watch a broadcast of that game. And it's obviously on a different plane. It can't compete with iRacing. Everybody knows that. You can't compare the two. But I think back to the finale that they did last year from ISM Raceway at the time, now Phoenix Raceway, of that final race to settle a championship. And it didn't look good. Like, it just didn't. And bless their hearts, they tried their best. They put together a nice production. They had, a lot of big names there, and all the team representatives there, and tried to build it up to this big thing. And I think they accomplished most of it, but the on track product is what people really look at, and it just didn't look that good, especially at the end when you had cars flying through the last
I'm
corner,
pretty
not
sure.
braking at all. Like, it didn't represent what we want to see as the community. That's not what we want people to see.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it was the finale where like there was a car that like got turned, went up into the wall, and then slid along the wall, and then turned back to
Yep.
normal, and then won the race.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
that was
don't know.
exactly it.
Yeah, no, it's and what you said. I mean, we're of course not bashing on the company because they make it's a legitimate game, and I think it's cool because they cater to a certain sort of audience and genre that do enjoy it, and all the power to them. Of course, it's obviously I don't think it's for me or you or majority of people listening or watching this podcast, but I if I were to put myself in the shoes of like a younger me or someone who wants to just get into the sport a little bit or whatnot, I mean, I would pick it up. It's simple, it's easy. You can pick it up, learn the drivers' names and their paint schemes and stuff, and it reminds me,
Sure.
yeah, just of games I'd play like way, but when I was way younger. So, but yeah, when it comes to something that is trying to be a supplement to actual NASCAR. I mean, you can't really be running that. You definitely
No.
iRacing's the way to go, and I'm glad they went
Yeah.
that route. I really am, and that's why I wish like F1, if they had the modern F1 cars in iRacing, I mean, I feel like it would just be on a whole nother level. But I think F1
I wish they
2019 does a
did.
good job. Yeah, oh yeah, me too. I definitely wish they did. Well, I think we've covered that topic quite a bit, a bit about like the situation iRacing's in and whatnot. I guess you were telling me you played a lot of NASCAR 2003 or NR
Yeah.
2003. Um, tell us about I guess how you kind of got into racing in general. Like, did you just grow up with it or?
So no, I didn't. I started watching NASCAR in 1994, I think, or 1995 was the first year I really started watching. And it all started when my dad bought me a model, like you put together, you paint the car and you glue
Uh
it
huh.
together and all that, like a model car.
Yeah.
And it was Ernie Irvin's number 28 Texaco Haviland Ford Thunderbird. And I was like, oh, cool. It's a race car. Like, whatever. I don't know, in 1995. Now I'll date myself. I was, probably 11 or 12 years old. Um, and Yeah, so he brought this thing home and I put it together and I was like, cool, it's a race car. Like, I don't know, it looks cool. It's got
Uh-huh.
stickers on it, whatever. But I think
Yeah.
one day I was watching TV and obviously it was a Sunday and I saw, that car on TV and I was like, hey, that's the car that I put together. That's that model car. And that's where the connection was. And that's when I really started paying more attention. I was like, oh, I'm gonna keep watching and keep watching. And the next thing you know, I mean, I'm watching it every weekend. I'm starting to learn about it. And that's how I really got into racing itself. Nobody in my family really was into it. My mom started getting into it. She was a Ricky Rudd fan because she loved the Tide car.
Hmm.
Um, my dad was more of a let me know when they're in the last 10 laps and I'll watch sort of mode.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
yeah.
for me, it really became that was my sport of choice. That's what I love to watch and I wanted to learn about. So that's how I got into racing that way. And of course, from there, I was always a big gamer. Back then it was, regular Nintendo and Super Nintendo and all of that. But um, I started getting into racing games at that point. And in 95, Papyrus released NASCAR Racing 2 for PC. And that was their follow up to their original game that really kicked off the whole franchise. Of course, Papyrus turned into what iRacing is today. A lot of those folks are what built iRacing now as it was today. So that's really where it started on me for PC sim racing in '95, just by myself playing the Papyrus titles. And I think I started on a keyboard, and then I worked my way up to like a joystick, which was interesting
That's
because that's all
interesting.
it's either that's not a good way to do throttle, right? You're either on or you're off the throttle. It's
Yeah.
always
It's
100%
like
or
100% or
0%.
zero. Yeah, exactly. Like there's no controlling that at all.
No, but we made it work, and it was just me against the AI, and that was fine. But yeah, really in 2003 is when the online component came into my world, and I joined up with it. And NASCAR 2003 was the game of choice, and it's still alive and well to this day in 2020, thanks to people like Justin Melillo over at FTF. And countless others who have leagues still going in the NASCAR 2003 community who
Really?
uh, it's unbelievable. I mean,
I'm
people like
surprised.
they still run it because mods have come out to make the cars look modern. They've updated tracks. It's amazing the amount of support that the NASCAR 2003 community has put together to keeping that game looking as modern as possible. And it's amazing that it's still going, but it is still going, and people still
Wow.
love running it.
That's awesome. So then from there, you
Yeah,
said you were running, did like NASCAR 2003 for a long time until just like what you said, like a year or two ago or something. And then you,
I finally stopped running NASCAR 2003 after 2018. That was the end of it for me. So yeah, so about 15 years of playing that game, and online league racing and all of that. Yeah, it was a long, long time. But like I said, I joined iRacing back in 2009. So I always had those two sort of together, but I never fully committed to running iRacing. I, I was never really that good at it, and I didn't put enough time into getting good at it. So to me, NASCAR 2003 was my comfort zone. That's
yeah,
where I knew I
where you
was going
felt
to have more
comfortable and
fun.
yep. Oh, that makes
But
sense.
a lot of people jumped off of NASCAR 2003 to iRacing back in that time period. All the guys that made up that initial class of DWC drivers, your Ray Alfalas, and those types of drivers, they were running NASCAR 2003 before that, and they made the change and they got in it and went hard really early. But it's been so fun to watch over the years how much the community has changed, but how much it stayed the same as well, because there are a lot of people that I keep in contact with or that I see now in iRacing that I haven't seen their name or talked to them in years because they went to iRacing before I did full time. But I used to race with them back in NASCAR 2003. So
Yeah.
be like, hey, aren't you so and
Small
so
world.
from back then? And they're like, yeah, hey, how are you? Like, it's been really fun to
That's
see and
cool.
reconnect with people.
That's awesome. What made you decide like why 2018? Was it just some moment where you're like, oh, like f this game? I'm like, was it like some sort of crash or whatever? You're just like, I'm moving on, or was it just got out of it, or was there a
It was
moment?
just time. It was just time. I've been streaming on Twitch for probably almost 4 years now. And I really built my community on Twitch around NASCAR 2003,
Mm,
and built up a nice little community at the start. And granted, it's not a big title and not a huge genre compared to when iRacing was going, but we built something up, and that's how I started streaming with guys like Derek Justice. I mean, Derek was instrumental in me getting into streaming. He's been instrumental in me learning so many things when it
mm,
comes to streaming and sim racing.
mm,
But yeah, and I took a little bit of a break. I think in 2017, 2018, I took a little break from streaming and was focusing on other things. But it came to a point where I realized that NASCAR 2003 was not the future. And if I really wanted to get serious about growing a community on Twitch and becoming a more serious streamer, iRacing was going to be the content I would have to provide. And because I seen how many other people were becoming successful streamers on iRacing, and so I took the plunge and decided I needed to make that switch, and I needed to finally learn how to be successful in iRacing. And that's really where I started focusing last year. Broadcasting a lot helped me get that itch to come back to driving as well,
mm.
because I was watching these guys. And I was like, I wonder if can still do it. I wonder if I still got the talent.
Yeah.
Um, which I think I've proven I don't uh, have all that talent, but I do okay. I do okay,
Yeah,
but
man, you do good.
I have fun, and that's really what matters most. Is I have fun, but the streaming element of it has been huge. I don't like to talk about myself a whole lot, but I will say that the Twitch community has been fantastic. The amount of growth that my community has experienced over the past few months has been insane. Um, I did a 24-hour charity stream for the Daytona 24, benefiting the World Wildlife Fund of Australia. We ended up raising $1,500
That's awesome.
to send to that charity. I know Rents the Fence did
Oh my,
charity work for them as
yeah.
well,
That
and
was
raised about the same amount, maybe a little more. And those type of events were like, it's such a great way to bring sim racing and charity work together for a great cause and do what we love to do, but raise money for a great reason. It was such a powerful thing. I really, really love that. But in these times now, Jack, especially, one of these benefits of what we're dealing with, this pandemic, everyone's seeing increased vision, eyes on their channels, increased consumption of iRacing content, more people in the genre and in the space watching. Jonathan Cadell, Steel Horse Live, just made partner on
Yep,
Twitch.
I saw
Justin
that.
Botello made partner not that long
Oh,
ago.
Justin.
Um, and they're all part of this Twitch team that I'm a part of, which is called Outrun Esports. It's sort of like Grip TV, but more for Oval.
Hmm. Yeah,
So Derek's on there. I'm sure Derek's well on his way to making partners soon. And Briar LaPrade is on there.
he's
And
gonna
and
get partners soon, probably too. Briar's.
absolutely, Briar's
You are
awesome.
as well, probably. I mean, you're all you guys are on your way.
Maybe we'll
I
see.
hope I'm
We'll
on my
see.
way. I've been trying for like 2 years to get that damn partnership. Still waiting on that.
It's a lot of work,
It
but now's
is,
the time
yeah.
to capitalize on it. When there's more people in the space, more people watching. I've seen just in the last few streams that I've done, and a lot of it's been helped by guys like Botello rating, and all of us on this Outrun Esports team supporting each other and rating one another and passing it along. When we're done, we pass it along to somebody else just to keep that momentum going, so people don't fall into the void and have to go and find somebody else. We just warm handoff to somebody else that we
Yeah.
know and want to support. But I know I've seen increased viewership, increased metrics across the board. A lot of people have seen it. So now is the time to do it. Now's the time to really be a part of it. And whether it's broadcasting, streaming, or just sitting down to do a race by myself in official setting, it's a very exciting time, and I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's definitely something that I think as content creators, you know, we could definitely capitalize on just the increased amount of eyes watching, and I think it's really cool. Just of course, just yeah, in general. Yeah, it's really really awesome. What you were talking earlier, you were saying oh, you were like casting and then decided you wanted to like try and race again or whatever. How did you even get into casting to begin with? Like, how did that start?
Oh boy. So it started back in the NASCAR 2003 days. I think I was already streaming on Twitch at that point, and people were like, "Man, you should try broadcasting. You have a great voice
You have the
for it, and
voice.
you're
Yep,
really good
I
on
agree
camera."
with that. Definitely. I don't know how much is the
Thank you.
mic, but from what I hear, like, yeah, you definitely have the voice, the broadcasting voice.
Well, I'll tell you this, Jack. When I got into streaming, it was very important to me that I invested my money into the right equipment. That I wasn't gonna um, half, you know what, anything. I don't know if
Yeah,
I can use that language on your
you can
podcast, but
cuss. Yeah, I know what you're
okay.
saying. Half-ass the
I
equipment.
wasn't I wasn't gonna half-ass anything when it came to the equipment that I was gonna use because I had been listening to guys like Evan Pasoko and Tim Terry and others who have been doing broadcasting, and I've been watching streamers not just in the iRacing world but across Twitch, just to see how they handled streaming and the equipment that they use because I didn't want to hold myself back because of equipment.
Hmm.
I only wanted to be held back because of skill or ability, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I made sure I bought nice stuff, and that certainly has helped quite a bit. But I think people started, saying, "Oh, you should get into doing it. You should do it." I was like, that's always the question. How do you get into it? How do you get into broadcasting, right? I was fortunate enough to have somebody reach out to me who I had raced with in NASCAR 2003, who ran their own broadcasting company. It was Phil Lacasse, and his company had undergone a number of changes at this point, but it used to be Full Velocity TV, Full Velocity Network. I think it's had other names as well, but um, yeah, and Todd Stanton was his other partner in that business, and those two reached out to me and said, "Hey, if you want to give it a shot, we have an opening for you in a race that we're covering on their network." I said, "Sure, I'll give it a whirl. It would be
Yeah.
fun, right?"
Yeah.
And a couple of those, and uh, things seemed to go pretty well. Got a positive reception to it, and then the next thing from there snowballed into an opportunity coming together with a real life broadcasting company called Speed Shift TV. They do dirt coverage, real life dirt coverage all around the U.S. and even around the world. I guess they do. They've done some international dirt coverage as well, but they were interested in partnering their name with iRacing dirt racing coverage. And Joe Allen, who I've worked with and known for a long time, uh, sort of spearheaded that whole pursuit as the producer. And we managed to work Speed Shift TV coverage of iRacing with the guys over at Big Show Promotions and the racing that they were doing. And so we started doing a weekly series with them, um, which was pretty cool. Tyler Summerlin and Brett Ladyhoff at Big Show Promotions, and we were doing big, promotion. Well, I guess that's why they have that name, but really big shows on the dirt side. But a weekly racing series and other big shows, Winter Nationals, things that paid good money to the winners. And it sort of snowballed from that then into uh, getting connected with Evan Pasoko at LSR TV. And he's like, "Hey, if you want to jump in and do a broadcast, we'd love to have you on." So I was like, I mean, come on, this is LSR TV. That's like the pinnacle of sim race broadcast coverage, right? Like they had
Mm.
everything. They had Evan, they had James Pike, they had Cisco, they had Jacob Seelman, they had all the big names covering all the biggest events. And so I worked my way into LSR TV. It's just this snowball effect
Yeah.
of one opportunity leading to the next, because people heard what I was doing, they liked it, and they wanted to bring me in. And the work that I did on LSR TV was primarily um, leading the broadcast for a series called Sesra last year. And from there, I think that's what led to my opportunity with Podium Esports. And again, it's just one opportunity leading to the
Leading
next.
to the next one, just slowly but surely working your way up the ladder, I guess. Boy, I wonder what do you think's next then? What's the? Well, I mean, I guess how much real life maybe get in the booth with Jeff Gordon now.
I
It's
think there's a lot of guys in line that would get that opportunity before me, Evan being one of them, Jacob, Seelman, James Pike. I think that they've positioned themselves well. and they're geographically located well to take advantage of those opportunities right now.
Yeah.
Also, but if an opportunity came along that said, "Hey, we'd love to have you be a part of a simulcast where you can be at home, but we're going to work you in with other professionals," I would absolutely welcome that opportunity. Will it happen? I doubt it. Would it be fun? Absolutely. So, but I never thought that I would have an opportunity to broadcast a race like the Replacements 100 last weekend, where I'm calling a race that has Dale Earnhardt Jr. in it, and
Oh, that
all
was
these
so cool.
names. So the last couple weeks have certainly been full of unexpected things. I got interviewed by ESPN after that race was over, and an article up on ESPN about that event, and was on Sirius Speedway
Really?
with Dave Moody.
Wow.
And yeah, just these all this crazy exposure for me, for James, for Jacob, because James was on the late shift with Brad Gilly and Brad Doherty on Sirius XM that Monday after the show as well. So, who knows what gets born out of these things? My only hope is that if people like the work that we did and they want to bring people in, that they get that opportunity, because who knows how many opportunities you get in life to do something like that. Certainly
Definitely.
all these were unexpected, but I will take advantage of every opportunity that comes my way to do more work like this.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, it, a motto that I've had in my life, and I can see how it kind of happened in yours, is I've always said, success is when being prepared and an opportunity meet. And you were
Right.
talking about how, you didn't want to, as you said, like half-ass your setup. You wanted to make sure you were good, ready to go, and you were ready, and the opportunity came, and then that sparked what you were saying, which is the snowball, just one opportunity after the other that's led you to where you are now, casting a race with Dale Earnhardt Jr., and many more. I think that just
Yeah.
is super super cool. And now, of course, with your stream, um yeah, just a lot of cool things happening for you, and I'm happy for you. Absolutely. I think that's
Thanks.
that's really really cool. What do you think, changing subjects a little bit, with NASCAR, I guess now being on their hiatus, what do you think is going to happen when it comes back? What's the plan, do you think?
Tough to say. They've said that they want to make their first race back, the night Martinsville race over Mother's Day weekend in May. Um, I have tickets to that race. I have Airbnb set up. I have airfare purchased for that race.
Hope it goes through. Praying that race happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say right now because we don't know where this trajectory of the spread of coronavirus and combating it and getting it under control is. It could prevent more racing from happening. We could lose a lot more events. But NASCAR said that they're committed to running 36 races and running the whole schedule. But a lot of that's dictated, obviously, on when we can get back to racing. Now, there's been talk of, depending on how things go, we get back to racing without the fans at the track. So maybe, that Martinsville race and subsequent races don't have the fans at the track until the CDC or whoever dictates it's okay for large gatherings to occur again. It could be that we get pushed out even further and 36 races aren't going to happen. We just don't know. But if NASCAR's committed to running 36 races to determine a champion, we could see more double headers. We could see midweek races. We could see a lot of things that we haven't seen before in order to get 36 events under our belts, which was already part of the plan. Obviously, Pocono has the doubleheader, and we've heard of other things that might come for the 2021 calendar that we hadn't seen before. So this may just turn into a large, you know, dry run, if you will, if we can get back to racing, where they can play around with events outside of the playoffs to get 36 events run.
Yeah. No, I hope so, because I heard that as well. I think Mike Joyce said, like, that they're planning to run all the races this season. And I mean, I think, yeah, like duplicates, like you're saying, the Pocono, like the doubleheader, like, I don't know, certain tracks that they run twice, maybe they just run it once, or I don't know. it's gonna definitely be tough. It's for pretty much all of motorsport getting started again. But I was talking with a good buddy of mine, Graham Sanders actually, and he was saying that even though it sucks right now, like it's gonna be such a sweet moment when the green flag drops.
Sure.
In real life, like it's just gonna be something so cool, and I definitely am looking forward to that moment. But in the meantime, yeah, I definitely am not complaining about some iRacing action. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really shows us how good we have it as a country, as a society when we can enjoy these things, and suddenly when they're not there anymore, we realize how much we do enjoy it.
Hmm.
And hopefully something like this, once we're past it and back to normal again, people have a little bit different perspective. They'll remember this time and perhaps not take things for granted so much, or have a little bit more appreciation for what we do have when we do have it. But I'm glad to see people in the community get together to bring some sort of product to the track, whether it's iRacing or, Lando doing the F1 thing or whatever it may be, the IndyCar series that's going to be coming up. It's just, I'm glad to see people still get together, still want to put racing products out there on the airwaves one way or the other,
Hmm.
to keep it going so people don't just completely move on from it. And because how do you fill the time if you're a race fan? How do you fill the time on weekends when there's no racing? And it's not because it's just out of season. We go crazy when we're in the off season as it is. This feels like off season again without a definitive, ending point,
Yeah,
and that's
it's really
almost
weird.
worse.
It is, yeah. Like you never know. It's crazy. I mean, this could be, yeah, like May or something. This could be like, God forbid, like a year or something. I mean, it's just. I'm hoping though, like, with the coronavirus, I'm really hoping it's kind of like like a flu season thing where it's like once it heats up and once we get into May, June, hopefully it starts to die down to, it kind of dies off throughout the summer, the warmer months. And because I don't think the virus, from what I've looked, it doesn't seem to be affecting regions close to the equator as much. There are still some, but it seems to be affecting more like colder, I think, climates, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if that has anything to do, of course, with the like the correlation between like getting the flu or a cold and that, but I don't
Well,
know.
I'll hope for all of us out here in Arizona that we get to our 115 degrees sooner rather than later.
Oh God. Yeah, 115. Goodness me. I mean, I'm in San Antonio, Texas, and I think it gets up to maybe like 105 max, maybe. But yeah, I can't imagine 115. It's like a dry heat, though, right?
It
Or
is a dry heat,
dry heat.
absolutely.
God, yeah, that's awful. I mean, you literally are in a desert. So,
Yep.
alrighty. I think we can get to the point. There's a few questions that we have asked, and then we'll answer a few questions if you want, David, and then
Sure.
we can wrap it up. Remember also, if you are, of course, watching this live, you can redeem a question. It's completely free. You just need to have 500 channel points. But you get channel points by, of course, following and subscribing. I think if you want to get them quick for the questions, so you can just redeem them, and we'll run through them. Someone in the chat, I can't read the name. Is that Justin? No, that's Steelhorse. Oh, Steelhorse. Yeah. So he didn't actually redeem it, but he said ask him about his shotgunning skills when you were in Phoenix. I saw you responded to that. Shotgunning skills. Tell us about these shotgunning skills. I know Steelhorse has the shotgunning skills. I see it 10 times every night.
He's
a
pretty
king.
good at it, I guess you could say. So I got the opportunity to meet Steel Horse November 2018. He and a couple of his buddies came out here for the Phoenix race weekend, and of course we got together. I met him out at the track, and we spent most of that Saturday, the Xfinity Series Saturday together, I think, watching the race, and then we went out for dinner afterwards and hung out at the Airbnb that he had. And yeah, he put it to me to shotgun a beer. Now I'll tell you this, full disclosure, it has never been a strong suit of mine. I didn't do it a whole bunch in college. Like, I just pop the top and drink like
Yeah,
that.
like normal. No, most people do, not the whole like. Yeah, I know what you mean.
So But, you have to imagine I'm there in the presence of one of the greatest iRacing streamers of all time,
Greatest
the
shotgunners of all time
godfather
too.
of yeah, the godfather of beer shotguns himself, and he hands me a beer and says, "Let's
Oh
shotgun
yeah,
this thing." So
it's
the
a sin
pressure
to
was
not do it.
absolutely the
Yeah.
pressure was unbelievable. Like, that was more pressure than leading a top split race, I'll tell you that, and not that I do that very often either, but so we crack it open, and I absolutely just blow the whole moment. Just horrifically blow it, and I knew I was going to the whole time. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it up to his standards by any stretch of the imagination. But I made an absolute fool out of myself and gave him quite the laugh, and I'm glad that I could do that for him.
What beer was it? Do you remember?
Oh, there's only one. Come on now.
Yeah, 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 you got to do it.
It's
Well,
Natty Lights. It's Natty Lights.
yeah, and also like the thing is like with it's like it drinking that much like so quick, like it really like stings. Like with the like carbonation or whatever, it really it's difficult. It definitely is.
Yeah. I'm not a big guy. Like, not I don't know how much size has to do with it, but I'm not a big guy. I'm a solid 5'5", maybe 5'6", 150 pounds or so. So I mean, I'm not a huge drinker as it is, but shotgunning a beer certainly isn't in my skill set. I know that. I wanted to try and do the best I could but I still entertained him. So I guess in the end, we all won.
Yeah, it's so yeah, dude. I think yeah, Steel Horse. I think definitely has a talent with that shotgunning business. One of the best of the business, for sure.
He does. He does. That's I think a large reason why he has the community that he has and why he attracts people.
Yeah, the
They
shotgunning.
they respect the shotgunning skills. They don't come for the sim racing. Let's just be honest. They don't come for the sim
Come for the
racing aspect.
drinking.
Exactly. And I would say the same for my own channel. I don't think people come to watch, my sim racing skills. I think they like the entertainment value.
Yeah, no, everyone has their own thing for sure. I think Steel Horse's shotgunning IR would be well over 10,000. He'd have
It's a
his pro
thing to behold in
license.
real life. I'll
Oh
tell you,
yeah.
it's a sign of beauty. Really is. It'll bring a tear to a man's eye.
Oh, you'd love to see it. All right, let's answer some more of these. Remember, you guys can keep putting in your questions. Um, okay, Bobbert, by the way, or Blobbert, by the way, asks, "What's your favorite oval track, and is there an oval track that you think needs to be added to iRacing?"
My favorite oval track. To drive and sim, probably my favorite oval track right now. I would say is the Old Michigan. I've had a blast this week in running the K&N car at the Old Michigan. Not the current repave one, but the old one with all the cracks in it.
Hmm.
It's just brilliant. It really is. It makes for some great racing, especially in the K&N car. Um, that's been fun. My favorite oval, I think, to watch a race run currently. Um, Phoenix was great. I hate to be a hometown guy, but Phoenix was absolutely outstanding a few weeks ago. I've been going to Phoenix Raceway for a number of years. I've seen great racing. I've seen terrible racing. I didn't go to this event a few weeks ago. I almost wish I had, since that's the last time they were on track. But that was some fantastic racing. So I think Phoenix has done a great job with what they've done at that track. If there's an oval that isn't an iRacing that I think should be added to iRacing, um, we'd have to go way back because they have all the current stuff on there. That we'd have to go way back. I know they're bringing North Wilkesboro back, so I'm not going to say that. Although I don't think a lot of people uh, have ever driven North Wilkesboro on a sim, and it did exist in the old Papyrus games. And I think a lot of people don't remember the fact that the straightaways change elevation or just how difficult of a track it is. So it'll be fun to see when they bring that track in. Now that people will have it, how much they complain about how hard it is to drive there.
So you predict that people are going to be complaining?
I think a lot of people are going to be unprepared for the fact that it changes elevation as you go up and down the straightaways. They
Yeah.
don't know that. Maybe they do. Maybe they. I could be wrong, but um, it's a unique thing about North Wilkesboro that maybe some of the younger folks who didn't watch racing there or don't know about it we're unaware of. But I think back to some of the old tracks that the Truck Series and the Busch, now the Xfinity Series, used to race at places like Mesa Marin, I-70 Speedway, Pikes Peak, Nazareth. Those are some fantastic racetracks that if they can bring back North Wilkesboro in its old dilapidated state, they can bring Nazareth back.
Yeah, no, those would be some cool tracks as well. And there was also what was that tweet that the that kind of it was like the fictional track, the Coca-Cola Speedway or something, or
Oh yeah, the big super
the
speedway
mass. It's
Coca-Cola.
like the Talladega
Yeah.
on steroids or whatever, like 3 mile track or something like that. Is that um what did iRacing say? Like if we get Coca-Cola as a sponsor, we'll bring back this track or
I
whatever.
mean,
So
I would imagine they have the code to do it since, that was a papyrus track for those games. I would imagine they have the code to be able to work with if they wanted to bring it into iRacing as a fantasy track. It would sort of be unprecedented because they don't necessarily do fantasy tracks,
yeah,
but
I think it would be cool. My opinion. I think it would be cool
I
to
would be
have.
fine with it. It would have some hellacious crashes, that much is for sure. But you imagine Carb Cup or Pickup Cup running
Oh,
into that
I,
track. Oh my
I
God.
don't want to imagine that. I mean, that would just be insane. And the track is like super, like people in Carb Cup still find a way to crash, even when you have about like 10 lanes probably at like Talladega. You can go like 4 wide and people still crash and don't give each other enough room. So it wouldn't be any
There'll
different
never
there.
be a track wide enough to prevent people from finding a way to crash into one another. I'll tell you that much right
Yeah,
now.
you still have people like going down the straight at Pocono where you can go like 8 wide and still end up not giving enough room. It's like, and you got a mile to the left and right of you. Yeah, I hope they bring back the. Was it just called Coca-Cola Speedway or
I
Coke
think it was
Speedway?
called just Coca-Cola Speedway. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool. I can see people being against it because it's not a real life, of course, like track, but to me it sounds fun, or even just like a
Yeah.
week 13 thing, or throw in the NASCAR off season just for a week, or I don't know. I think it'd be really
Week
cool.
13, I think that'd be a great fit for it.
Yeah, something week 13, or have it Carb Cup only. Like unless it's like yeah, just a Carb Cup kind of track or something. I don't know. I think it'd be really cool. So yeah, good question though, Blob. Definitely. Karen asks if iRacing was not a thing, which racing sim or sims plural do you think you would have had? Do you think would have had the spotlight the last 10 years?
Well, I mean, if iRacing didn't come out to be, something would have filled that space. If the team from Papyrus did not get together to form iRacing, I think their passion was so strong they would have formed something. So I have to imagine that there would have been another service that came out, something that was trying to capture and recreate uh, with better technology, better than they had at Papyrus, modern sim racing. We've seen titles like Race Room and Assetto Corsa and Project Cars, all do it to varying degrees, and people will argue until the end of the day which one is better and why, and they're all right for varying reasons. But iRacing, I think, has captured it the best. They also have the biggest budget and the most resources available. So if not them, somebody would have come along to do it because there's such a demand in the video game space. And I know it's a simulator, but in the video game space,
Mm-hmm.
there's a huge demand for racing titles. And there
Mm-hmm.
aren't a whole lot out there anymore. EA is not making NASCAR games anymore. We all are super nostalgic for NASCAR Thunder 2003, 4, or 5, whichever one you liked.
Mm-hmm.
People are still playing NASCAR Racing 2003 season, as I mentioned. There have been some hits, there have been some misses. If you want console racing, you're really limited now to NASCAR Heat, which some people aren't okay with, which is fine. But other than that, the sim racing genre right now is really tilted towards PC based simulation as opposed to console based recreation.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I'm not sure that I've seen anything that would indicate that is going to change anytime soon, especially with the way iRacing is going, unless a bigger, richer company with more resources and more people come along to supplant what iRacing's been doing. I don't see iRacing being knocked off the top of the mountain. Granted, they've been around for 10 years, and some people argue that their product hasn't changed enough in the course of 10 years to really justify its existence anymore, which I think
Mm.
is, there's some truth to that when you think of a game that's been out for 10 years. We don't have a lot of examples of video games that have been out for that long. World of Warcraft comes to mind, but that game has evolved and experienced its own revolutions as time has gone on. iRacing has evolved as well, but at its core, you can still see a lot of the things that existed back in 2008, 2009 that still exist today. So is there room to change? Absolutely. What would that require? I'm pretty sure it requires a complete overhaul to their entire framework and coding structure. So iRacing 2.0, maybe that's something we see in the next 5 years. I don't know, but I don't see anybody knocking iRacing off of that top spot, because if they're going to, it's going to take more people, more money, and the buy-in from all the manufacturers currently involved in iRacing to leave iRacing and go
Oh
partner with that
yeah.
new entity.
No, it's huge. Absolutely. And it's kind of cool you bring, or it's interesting you brought up the point about how iRacing is simply, or it's just kept evolving. And I think about it like a lot of the games that have stayed alive after so long are games that have not changed games but just simply updated the game. I'm thinking of, yeah, you said like World of Warcraft, like League of Legends, Dota 2, like those like MOBA style games, iRacing. It's not like a different whole nother game that you can buy. It's like they just take the same thing and just keep updating it, so it's just
Yeah.
one single entity. And I think that that's really huge because Assetto Corsa, Assetto Corsa has a ton of mods, which is awesome, and the community is really big in Assetto Corsa with the mods. But like they have Assetto Corsa now, Assetto Corsa, Competizione like their new one. You have like Project Cars 2, R Factor 2. List goes on, and it's like I really like how iRacing has just kept the same game and just continued to evolve. But on the same token, what you were saying, the double-edged sword, a lot of the things from when iRacing was born in 2008, I think it was, right, 2008.
Yep. Yeah.
They're still, you can still see that today, and they'd have to, like you said, completely redo everything because everything is built upon that foundation, and it is
Right.
apparent. And they're trying, I think, their hardest to kind of update stuff. Like Lime Rock Park, they updated. That track was from
Yep.
the base. I think Lime Rock, that was the original, like the first iRacing track or something, wasn't it? One of the
Yeah, it was
first.
one of the originals that they released.
Yeah, I think so. And I think Summit Point is still one of the originals. And when it comes to oval, are there any oval tracks that are originals that aren't like archived now? Any, or
Um, I'm sure there's one
maybe
that I can't
USA?
think of. Yeah, I mean USA Lanier still exists, even though it's not really linear anymore. I think it's a go kart track now more than
Yeah.
anything. But and that was one of the original tracks. I think was linear. But yeah, they've done a good job of keeping up with a lot of stuff, especially trying to stay relevant so that when you turn off the TV on Sunday from watching a actual race and you look at iRacing, you don't see much difference as far as the branding, as far as the way the tracks look or the cars. They've done a good job, better more recently than they used to, of keeping the cars current. They did a great job of getting the Mustang out for Ford and getting the Camaro updated for Chevy on the NASCAR side of things. They don't have the Ford truck for the truck series, which is disappointing.
I don't know
Just the
why.
Chevy and the Toyota. But yeah, I mean, it's curious that they don't have
I
the
don't get it.
F-150 when the Mustangs are in the Xfinity and the Cup series.
Yeah,
I don't know.
there's
But
something that,
yeah,
yeah, we don't know about, but yeah, I think they had the new package last year's package released like literally only like 3 weeks or something after it, I think, made its debut or whatever in real life at Daytona 500. So that was really insane how quickly they were able to. I think they said they got a hold of all the stuff early, so they could kind of get it
right.
scanned and all that sort of stuff by time. But
Yeah. Yeah, I think they've gotten to a point where NASCAR is more apt to share information with them,
hmm,
so they can be ahead of the game instead of behind the eight ball on a lot of this stuff, because
hmm.
people don't. for the casual iRacer, and even the hardcore iRacer, they don't like using something that isn't current, right? Like
Mhm.
they just feel it's silly,
Yeah,
especially for a
definitely.
subscription-based service where they
Yeah.
say, well, I'm paying this money. What are they doing with it? They
Yeah,
do a lot
they
with it,
need to.
obviously.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I think I saw somewhere for iRacing to scan the Nordschleife, which is that track in Germany. Um, it cost them about 400, I think $400,000
Sounds
scan
about
the
right.
whole track, and they said typically an iRacing track's about 100,000 for just a
Yeah,
standard oval and road track. It's about 100,000. Of course, fly everybody out there, get the software, pay of course for everybody. Pay whatever people they need to pay. But yeah, that the Nordschleife, it costed him around $400,000. So like, yeah,
that's a big chunk of change.
that's a big chunk of change, and so it's worth it. I mean, I've told people iRacing it's expensive, but I feel like you get what you pay for. Personally, I
Sure,
think you do,
sure.
and
Well, they
so
got to think they got to figure out how to recoup $400,000 or how long it takes
mm,
when they're getting, 13 bucks a month from the average subscriber, right? So,
yeah,
that's a big investment that's going to take some time to recoup. But even at $100,000 for a standard track, people say, "Oh, where's the rescan of X, Y, and Z?" It takes time and
yeah,
resources
you
and
got to
money, and
build
you
the
have to
money
budget
back
those
up
things
again
out.
before you can.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like saving up for from for like a layman's perspective, like saving up for like a new, webcam or mic or whatever. You just save
Sure.
up a certain amount and then you buy it. It's the same with iRacing. They got to save up the money before they can buy basically the laser scan track. So that's a good way to put it. I never really thought of it like that, but yeah,
Yeah, it's a business like anything else. They got to be mindful
their
of their bottom
finances.
line
Yep.
and forecasting out their fiscal future. But with what's going on right now, like I said, they're
Oh,
seeing a huge spike in subscriptions, and they're raking in a good amount of revenue, which is good for everybody because that opens up the door for them to do more and bring more to the service as well. They're not just going to sit on it and let the money just sit there. They're going to use it. They're going to invest in scanning tracks and getting different cars and updating certain things. Hopefully, they'll even put in a new pace car instead of a 2005 Ford Mustang.
oh yeah.
Uh,
What did they have now in real life? It's a Camaro, right? Or what
it
is it?
seems to change sometimes. I think it's the Camry. I think it's a Toyota Camry,
Oh, okay.
XR, whatever the hell the
Something.
top level is, whatever it is.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think somebody pointed that out in my stream last night. Is why is it still a mid 2000s Mustang as the pace car that's been there since the beginning?
Yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought about it because I don't think about the pace car much. It's like I don't think of the actual model of the pace car, but that's true. Like it certainly can't be that hard because you don't need to like laser scan a. Well, maybe people would want the car to be actually be drivable as well. Like because the Mustang they have is also the Mustang that you can drive in iRacing, right? It's the same model, I
Yeah,
think. Isn't it?
if that's still in the game, that yeah, it's
Matt
the same
Malone
one.
still. I think Matt Malone is trying to win his division actually in that car. So people still run that Mustang quite a bit. But yeah, that was a really good question,
Yeah,
Karen.
great
We kind of
question.
actually went down a rabbit hole as well, like off the question, but it was definitely a good conversation for sure. Okay, Amsteriga asks, okay, this question I was arguing on stream about this because there was a big debate. So the car series, I'm not even gonna say the name. I just want to see how you pronounce it. It's the series that is spelled Whelen. The open wheel, kind of like go kart looking
Oh, the
car.
modified, the Whelen modified series.
Wheeling. Okay, you say Wheeling?
Yeah,
Okay, that's how I say it. We were in a discussion how you actually pronounce it because
I wouldn't take any stock in how Amsteriga pronounces anything because he's from a different country where we can't understand anything they say anyways.
well, yeah, 'cause he thought it was okay. Well, there were three different things. It was Wheeling, Waylon, or no Wheeling, Waylon, or Wellen. And
Yeah,
we were discussing which one it was, and we couldn't figure it out. I was with Graham and Kaylin, and like my chat and stuff, and they're like, someone in my chat was like, "Oh, it's Wayland because the company Wheelan makes like sirens or lights, and it's supposed to be for like wailing lights and stuff." I was like, okay, like that kind of makes sense, but I've always called it Wheelan. So I had to go on YouTube, or I went on the internet, went to freaking Wheelin.com. They had a trailer on their homepage about Wheelin, and I played it. It said Wheelin. End of
Yeah,
discussion. It's Wheelin. It's
it
only one
is.
E,
It
but it's
is.
Wheelin. I mean, there's just no if the own their own company says Wheelin, like it can't be anything else than that. So, yes,
I would agree with
Caitlin.
that.
Okay, thank you. I am very glad that we agreed on that. Otherwise, the podcast
I
would
mean,
have
I've heard
gone
that name
downhill.
thrown around. I mean, they're a big partner in NASCAR. They're a sponsor in NASCAR. We've heard that name or for a very, very long time. And as a title sponsor of the modified series, I mean, it's when it's said on TV by guys like Mike Joy and Darrell Waltrip and Larry McReynolds. I mean, that's good enough for me. Sorry,
Yeah.
Kalen, love you, buddy, but maybe in your accent it sounds like that, but over here, no.
Oh yeah, it's Wheeling. All right, straight up. All right. Yeah. Okay, that was a good one. Enchanted Outlaw. This will be the final question. Enchanted Outlaw asks, "What do you think about the F1 2021 regulations getting postponed, and what are your thoughts on the virtual F1 races?"
Yeah, I was disappointed that the regulations are being pushed out for another year. I was really looking forward to seeing how the budgetary restrictions and everything else was going to impact F1 as a whole, especially with the new car next year. I was sort of looking forward to this being the last year of the current model of F1 racing. But given the circumstances, what are you going to do? It sort of is what it is right now. We can't worry about that. I think all it does is, again, with the uncertainty of when we're actually going back to the track and with the events that have been canceled, Monaco's been canceled and a lot of other events have been canceled. There's a lot of racing that just isn't going to happen. So I think in the broader perspective, it just makes sense. And I've often wondered, not to go down another rabbit hole, but I've paralleled it with NASCAR's efforts to get this next gen car on track because that's supposed to happen next year as well, which is going to be a big step for NASCAR. And they've committed to saying that whatever happens this year won't affect that. So I was curious to see F1 and the FIA take the position that they are going to push it back another year because of what's happening. Will it be best for F1 to push it back another year? I don't know. I think all it does is really guarantee Mercedes staying in F1 for another year. I think it guarantees everything not changing a whole lot towards the top for another year. But I'm also not entirely convinced that the new regulations were going to rapidly change things as far as the running order themselves, anyways, if they went into effect next year. But I was certainly looking forward to it. And to answer the second half of that question about the virtual F1 races, I think it's great. People love Lando Norris. If you don't love Lando Norris, you need to go see a doctor. I don't know what's wrong with
I
you
agree.
because he's amazing, infectious laugh, like you said earlier, Jack. Great streamer, and really brings a lot to the fans who are missing that product. We didn't get a whole lot of insight or a great look at him in Drive to Survive season 2. I'm disappointed in that. Wished we had seen more of him and less of Carlos Sainz, although Sainz is fine, and I understand why they showed so much of him. I just wished we had seen more of Lando
Hmm.
and learned more about him. But I guess in season 3, we'll get the opportunity since he's such a huge personality now, sort of an under the radar personality, but he's well liked by the rest of the grid. And I think that's good for everybody. But to see him sort of spearheading, streaming these F1 races along with the guys at Veloce Motorsports, I think I said that right, right?
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
I don't
guys
know.
like Tiamat Marduk and
Oh yeah,
Arava and all those guys.
Jimmy.
Um, Yeah, Jimmy and all those guys that are involved in that, and Maddie and all those boys. Seeing them all work together to bring F1 content in a way for people to watch, knowing that it's not too serious and seeing somebody that they recognize and like Lando Norris, I think is huge. He's
Absolutely.
getting 75, 80,000 viewers today,
That
or
is
something
like
like that.
I just can't like fathom that. That is so insane. I mean
Yeah,
that's so huge.
that's insane numbers, but it's great. And
Mhm.
I don't know how many other personalities in F1 are going to be able to necessarily pull that off either. I think about the rest of the drivers on the grid. he's pretty much the only one I think that's really well suited to stream uh, and reach out an audience like that. It's hard to imagine other guys that are accessible like him doing that.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's awesome. And we might see an increase of real drivers streaming now with the virus and whatnot. People are racing virtually. Hopefully we see some more guys, maybe F1 guys. I'd love to see Verstappen stream, Max Verstappen. I just think it
Yeah.
would just be so perfect. He already races with Lando so much, and they have a lot of good banter. If he just turned on the stream, I think that would be a great thing. So, but yeah, great question, Enchanted. Being
Yeah,
able
thank
to
you.
touch up.
Great question.
Yeah, great question from everybody. I think that's gonna probably wrap it up. Is there any kind of closing thoughts or comments, I guess, regarding a lot of the discussions we talked about today?
Well, first and foremost, a big thanks to you, Jack, for making time and asking me to be on the podcast. I certainly do appreciate it quite a bit. Big
Yeah,
thanks to
definitely.
everyone in chat, listening live or listening on the re-show. And really glad to sit here and just discuss motorsports in general. Um, really pleased with the whole community, sim racing as a whole. I'm really happy about where everything is at right now. We saw a great event today. We'll see more great events coming down the road as well. And again, without knowing how long this is going to go for, be ready for more and more content to come as these companies try to figure out a way, because there's a huge opportunity for them to bring in revenue when they're otherwise not going to, because they can't fill TV time slots like they used to. Their commercial deals are sort of in question right now because there's no content to put the commercials against to generate a return on investment for the advertisers. So they're looking for ways to bring racing to the forefront on TV to be able to sell that time to advertisers so they can continue to make money during these trying times, which I think is great because that opens up the door for, what we saw today in the Invitational, for the replacement series that we'll see on Tuesday nights going forward. Increased viewership for the Coca-Cola iRacing series, increased viewership for Podium Esports, and everybody else that's involved streaming here on Twitch. It's a great time in the sim racing community. I wish I was 10 years younger sometimes, honestly. I'm 36 years old. I wish I was 26 sometimes so that I would um, be in a little bit different position in life. But I'm happy to be where I'm at, happy to be here with everybody. And I warmly welcome and encourage everybody to continue to dive into the iRacing space and other sim racing spaces here on Twitch. Find creators. If you like what they're doing, support them, make it known, because this is going to be your main source of racing content for a while. And there's a lot of people doing it, a lot of quality people doing it. And I think that's the best thing that anyone could hope for.
Yeah, absolutely. No, well said. Absolutely. And I mean, I'm oddly looking for I'm looking forward to the future of iRacing, and with all the bad stuff with the virus, of course, I think that this is a little bright light in the this or as they say, I think like a diamond in like the sea of dirt or something like that. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's nice, you know what I mean? I'm trying to make an analogy for it, but it's just a nice little refreshing thing that's happening in the world right now, where people need that, and it's absolutely awesome. So David, I appreciate it, thank you so much. And to everybody watching, thank you. To everybody listening, of course, on Spotify, if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for listening and watching. If you're, of course, watching this live, thank you. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for hanging out with both of us today. And we'll see you guys in the future. Take it easy, everybody. Thank you all. And we will see all of you guys later. Peace out, everybody. Thank you all.